Hi.
Hey, how are you? So good to see you. Well, you copied me.
I was thinking the same thing.
I don't have a tie on, but okay.
Yes,
I love it.
you have that gorgeous necklace.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I dress like this all the time, you know. I'm just kidding.
Hollywood royalty. When I see this woman smile, it doesn't just make me smile, it makes my being smile. She has this aura about her that is just so breathtaking. She is truly a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful woman. And I'm going to introduce her now, Karen Sharpe Kramer.
Hello, David. And I'm never going to live up to any of those expletives you gave up to me because how am I ever going to live up to any of that? But thank you so much for that introduction.
Oh my, well, my God, well, it's so true. You know, from the moment I met you, I have to say, you have this glow about you. You're so real. You're so loving. You give, you know, even when you came to teach the Meet the Biz class years ago with Kat and on your own, you just have this, you know, you're stern in your teaching, but you're at the same time, it's a loving sternness that just makes people go, ah.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, I can tell you, but it was a wonderful experience for me. I loved it. And I love teaching, actually. And I've done some of it in my time, not enough, but I had a wonderful time doing it. And God bless you. You know, you're the one that started that. And it's caught on now. And we all were so involved with disabilities and people who have hearing loss and all of that. And because of you, you know, we took an interest in it as well. And now look at it. I mean, it's just through the roof. And it all started with you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just do, what I do is come from my heart and how it affects me. I've learned to, when I was growing up, I was like this, you know, giving. I love to give. In fact, I've showed this once before, but this I made, I think, in 4th grade.
Oh, and your mother had it. Your mother had it, didn't she?
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, I know mothers. Yes.
So
wonderful.
Love is giving. And I used to, I do love that. I love to give, but I've learned, especially when I was taking Corey Allen's workshops, how to give, but let it roll back to you. And by doing that, it opened up all these doors to my extended family, and this is where I'm at.
Well, it's a good place to be.
Well, yeah, and I love my infectious love for the community and for people, it sort of goes off into the atmosphere, and other people say, huh? Oh, okay.
It'd be a better world if everybody was like you.
Well.
Very, very rare. And I feel very privileged to know you and to be your friend and to be with you today.
Well, thank you. You have your history is so amazing. I don't even know where to start. What first comes to your mind when I say the word Stanley?
Oh, well, of course, I loved him, but I respected him and admired the work he was doing. You know, we all dreamed to have careers like he had and to be able to put subject matter out there. You know, he was the only one doing it for so many years. He was the daddy of it. He started in 1947 as an independent filmmaker. You know, there were no independents in 1947. It was all conglomerate studio owned.
Right.
And so Stanley knew that the stories he wanted to tell, that the studios didn't know who he was anyway, and he would never get a chance to work and tell the stories he wanted to tell. So he became independent. He raised his own money and got his crew together from the Army. They were only Army buddies, and they came together. There were 6 partners. There was a publicist. There was a writer. Stanley was a writer too, but he always gave all the credits to the other writers. And there was 3 attorneys. Smart to have 3 attorneys, right? Very smart to be so you don't have to pay those bills. But anyway, so he started as an independent, and actually on his second film, Champion,
Right.
he got Oscar nominated. And then his third film was The Men, introduced Marlon Brando, where the Champion had introduced Kirk Douglas for the first time. He had made some little films, but nobody knew who he was.
Right.
And it made Kirk a star, of course, Marlon Brando a star. Then he did Cyrano. He brought the rights to not the Broadway play, but the French play.
Right.
And had it translated. And then wrote the script with his partner. And they starred, Jose Ferrer. Well, nobody ever heard of Jose Ferrer, but he got the Academy Award for that performance. And so Stanley just kept going until Harry Cohn called him, who was the president of Columbia Pictures, and said, I want your company to come onto our lot, and I want you to make films for me.
Yeah.
And Stan said, absolutely no, I do not want to be under contract. I'm an independent and I want to stay an independent, but thank you for the offer. Well, his partners didn't feel the same way. They were all young men, married, having children. They said, Stanley, you're great at raising money, but look how it would be if you could have autonomy on the subjects we want to talk about or tell stories about. Then we have a paycheck that doesn't come from you. It comes from the studio. So we're safer if we go in this direction. So he didn't want to, but he did. He went to Columbia,
Right.
and he made some very good films for Harry Cohn. He was there. He made 15 films, and couldn't wait to get out of there and go back to being an independent. And so he did, and then he began to direct, because all he ever wanted to do anyway was direct. But in those days, it was not the director's medium. The director was a hired hand of the producer, one producer,
Right.
maybe a line producer, which we called an associate in those days. And it was the vision of the producer. When you say Gone with the Wind, you don't say Victor Fleming, who directed Gone with the Wind. You say David O. Selznick, Gone with the Wind. Because in those days, the producer had all the control. I wish it was like that today. It
Right.
isn't just like 19 producers on every film and you don't know who does what, We're trying to change that at the Producers Guild, but we're not getting there yet, but we're trying.
Yeah.
So when I think of Stanley, I think of someone who put his livelihood, his reputation on the line every time he told one of his stories. And he had, great success. He had actually 85 Oscar nominations in association with his 35 films. He never won an Oscar himself, but he got the Irving Thalberg Award for a producer. That's the highest award you can receive. And in those days, it was given only every 5 years. So he received that in 1960, when he was also directing at that time. And I think his greatest work was when he was completely in control of that part of it too, the producing and directing as well.
When I hear you, when I just listen to that, I tear up because I feel the love that you had for him and you have for him.
Oh, yes.
And it's,
well, it came, yes, I had a great deal of love for my husband. Of course I did. He's the father of my children, of course, too. That's another kind of love that goes into the mix, But I respected and admired, and who could not respect and admire and look at him with awe on the accomplishments that he made in his life. It's what we all of us dream of and don't dare to do it, We're a little bit more afraid to get out there and do what we should be doing. But it's really when I set the Producers Guild Award for Stanley 20 years ago, right after his death, was about social issue films. We had no film to give it to the first year.
no.
Nothing. He was making social conscious films. So I thought, this is going to fail. So I began to speak at universities and wherever I could in regard to take up the mantle tell stories about what we need to be talking about instead of the lightweight movies we were making. We were making some good movies, don't get me wrong, but they weren't socially conscious in that sense. And the second year, there were two films: A Beautiful Mind, which of course was a fabulous movie, and then a little film called I Am Sam, which starred John Penn.
Yeah.
And it was about mental illness, And so everybody thought I'd give it to A Beautiful Mind, and it was a great film. And I said to them, you know what? You don't need me. I Am Sam needs me. It's a little film that's going to get forgotten. You're going to go on and do great, but this little film I'm going to help this little film, which is what I did, which was what Stanley would have done,
Yeah.
And then the third year, there was another one, and then it began to grow. And now you think everybody does socially conscious films, but that really wasn't true for so many years. And all during Stanley's career, he started with civil rights right back in 1947.
Right.
1947, David, African Americans were not allowed to use our restrooms or our drinking fountains or our restaurants or frequent our theaters. It was for colored only, And Stanley brought a Broadway play called Home of the Brave. It was about anti-Semitism during World War II. And Stanley had experienced that, being Jewish. His commanding officer said, Kramer, are you Jewish? Are you a Jew? And he said, well, yes, sir, I am. And he said, well, you'll have to transfer because I don't like Jews. So Stanley had experienced discrimination all of his life, So he bought the rights to that Broadway play, but he thought, I'm going to make the stakes even higher. I'm going to star an African American actor in the leading role and talk about his plight in World War II in an all-white platoon.
Right.
And he brought in James Edwards. People didn't know who he was. But Stanley rented a space at the studio. He picked James up in the morning, put him on the floorboard of his car to hide him, going to and from work. He was afraid the guard would say, Mr. Kramer, why is that in your car? And he swore the cast and the crew to secrecy. And of course, when the film was released, it was the most picketed film in the history of show business.
Ah!
But that never, well, look at when it was done, it was 1947.
Right. And it broke through that wall. It broke through that ceiling.
Stanley never stopped. Then he went on to make Pressure Point with Sidney Poitier about I guess it would be a lawyer or a teacher or whatever in the prison.
Right.
And his prisoner was a neo-Nazi. It's a very good movie, actually. Little movie, made for practically nothing, but it was really good, starring Sidney Poitier.
Yeah.
And then the Defiant ones in 1960. Well, that caused a lot of problems too, because they just couldn't believe an African American and a white man getting along. Having the two hands handcuffed together, black and white hand, was the billboard. People really didn't respond to that.
I just, sometimes, I don't think I'm from this planet.
I know I'm not from this planet at this point of my life and what's going on, so we won't get into that right now. But I can't believe what's happened. I didn't know we were that stupid. I honestly didn't realize that we were that stupid. So every day my mouth's been falling open like, what, for at least 4.5 years now. So anyway, so then Stanley made Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was about interracial marriage, which is against the law. When we made it, it was against the law in 16 states. And I know Sidney, we had dinner with Sidney one night, and he said, Stanley, do you think the country is ready for this kind of film? Yeah. And Stanley looked back and said, nope, but we're going to make it anyhow. And we did. Right. And a few months later, that law was overturned, which was great. We released it about 3 months. We finished it in, I think it was first part of May. We released it in November.
Right.
But even though the law had reversed itself in those 16 states, it was not necessarily accepted by the public. And the thing that surprised me more than anything was the fact that the African Americans were not so happy about it either. So, but that film, when it opened, to their credit though, United Artists, God bless them, it wasn't good business to invest in this film when you can't show it in 16 states unless you want to have a riot. So Stanley used to just tap dance and not tell him what the story was about, because he knew that when he told them what the story was about, they'd cancel the film. It's not good business for them. So he kept tap dancing and saying, "Well, it's a love story." Well, is it not a love story? Of course it's. And it stars, Sydney. It stars Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn and so we were actually filming in San Francisco, the
Wow.
opening shots.
Now, did you go on the set with him a lot?
Not a lot. Once in a while I did, but I didn't. I've been in this business for a long time as an actor,
Yeah.
and I don't like to distract people. I didn't really have visitors when I was acting, and even though I was the lead in most of the things I ever did, and I could have had people, it's so distracting. You have to see after them, and I don't want them to have a bad day. So naturally, I would put myself out, and I didn't want to distract Stanley because he would be, trying to, make sure I was okay. So I'm an old hand at this kind of stuff,
So he'd be working in San Francisco, but you were home with the children.
Well, I had my stepchildren at that time.
Okay.
When I married Stanley, he had 2 children by his first marriage. They were 9 and 13, and he had custody of them. And I didn't meet them until my wedding day. It was really something.
Oh,
that was. So
have you
anyway,
written a book yet?
Pardon, I think I was Jane Eyre. I'd never been to the house. I didn't know them. I knew Stanley, but I didn't know him that well. I only dated him for about 6 months. Yeah. And we decided to get married, My mother was at the wedding and Stanley's uncle and the 2 children, and that was it. We got married in a house I'd never been in before in my life. And then I just started, that day. That was it.
Well, what's so beautiful is again, you're talking about Stanley, and we know, this amazing, but you had this amazing career going on as an actress, and you grew up as an only child in Texas, correct?
Yeah, I did.
And
well, I didn't grow up completely there. I was born there, and I knew at 6 I didn't want to be there. I was so smart at 6. When I started the first grade, yeah, my very best friend in the class was a little Hispanic girl. Well, we're very close to the border in San Antonio, but she was the only Hispanic child in the whole school. And I remember they calling roll, Jim present, Sam present, Kay Ran. It's Karen. And they say, "Oh, Corinne." I say, "Okay." I thought, "Oh, I'm never gonna get my name." And then they say Beatrice, and her name was Beatrice. So so anyway, okay. I knew they couldn't pronounce the name. That was the first thing I did. It gave me a clue. And then the second thing was I got bullied by classmates at 6 because my best friend was a Hispanic. And I went home I know your mouth's falling open. My mouth's been falling open for years. So you're in good company with me. I went home and talked to my mother and father and said, "I don't want to be here. I don't like it here." Well, they weren't really Texans. They were from Indiana, another state that I won't say it's so great either. But they came to Texas to visit my uncle who was in the Army, and they got pregnant with me, and so they stayed. And they lived their life there. Except that when I was 14, I took up ice skating. Well, I was ballet first, and then I went to ice skating, and I got pretty good at it. And all this was just so I could get out of that damn state.
Yeah.
And so I could go to Colorado to study skating in the summer because our rinks were closed in San Antonio because of the heat. Or we could come to California. So you know where I headed, to California, asking if you know anybody in the motion picture business. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an actress. And of course I got, such bad results in Texas that I wanted to do anything else besides being a housewife and raising children. It's just not, what people didn't do that, So anyway, I got out of there by the time I was 14 and came out here with my mother.
Yeah.
And with one of those lucky people, one of those people you love to hate, that goes on an audition and just gets it without having much behind her in experience or study or anything. And
you have that glow.
I don't know. Sometimes there's so many people that are talented, David, who never get an opportunity. I probably was less talented than a lot of people, but I was just lucky. And the one thing that I will give myself credit for is I have an ability to work harder than anybody else. I will work at it. I put everything out of my life.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they got me because I was all about the work,
Yeah.
and it never came easy for me, except work came easy for me. But the job itself, I would really, really put everything on hold in my life to do a good performance. And, it stood me in good stead. And to be, have the set etiquette, always early, never late, knew what I was doing, knew what the lines were, and I would go and work on the set the next day to see how they were going to shoot it, looking at the set in advance, figuring out,
Well,
what I'd be doing.
I wanted to throw some stuff out. I mean, and I want to follow you. We could have a 4-hour interview here, and I want to continue, but I want to also talk about, I mean, you've done movies, you've done plays, you've worked with so many wonderful, amazing people. I also know that you worked in a theater production, Wedding Breakfast opposite Piper Laurie. And do you prefer television, film, or theater?
It's a good question because I love all of it. I really do. But I think the thing that inspired me,
Yeah,
was live TV when it was live, when it was really live. I was under contract with John Wayne, having done The High and the Mighty, and I said, I'm never going to work with you because I'm too young.
but you worked with Piper.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you what happened. I went to live TV. That's the medium I really preferred. I did a lot of live TV. Not everybody can do that because it's pretty scary.
Right.
They combine theater with film because you have to hit your mark, and that's the thing. And also what I loved about it was the rehearsal period. You had a week to rehearse and develop your character. If you're doing a television show, which I like the fast pace of things too in television, but you go on the set. You'd never really met the director hardly. They would just cast me, and you didn't know your castmates unless you had worked with them before. And you hope you could do the performance you had planned in your mind. And that would always be stressful for me to see if I could play a part the way I envisioned it, not the way that they wanted me to play it sometimes, because it was always pretty a stereotype, the way they were more comfortable with that. They didn't want somebody coming in and adding something different to it. That's why I left Johnny Ringo, because I didn't want to play Laura in the town, who was just a pretty thing, and would see him once in a while. I said, unless I can be a tomboy out with Ringo, I don't want to do it.
Well, I have one question. What about you, Piper? Did you like?
Yeah. Okay, Piper.
No, Piper. Did you do you like acting in film or TV or stage better?
I like them all. It depends on who you're working with.
Oh my God! I was getting around to talking about you. Listen, Piper, my darling Piper. I haven't seen you in such a long time.
Yes.
Listen, let me just tell you, I so admire you. My children admire your work, and they know good work when they see it. And I remember you and I had the same singing teacher before you became who you are, and before I ever got a break. We had the same singing teacher. And I used to see you in those lessons, and then I know you got a contract at Universal and you became, a star. But what was so brave and wonderful that you did was pull away from that and go to New York and study with the greats, but become even greater yourself. And working opposite you was a lesson in acting. Believe me, I absolutely loved it. It was one of the most happy things in my life. It was hard, it was fun, but it was so much fun because I had never done anything quite like that before. Summer stopped. You get in a car, you go by plane, or pogo stick, however you can get there. And sometimes you get there just about 20 minutes before you're going to go on, and you look at the stage and say, I have to readjust my whole performance. But there's no rehearsal. You just have to do it on the moment. You remember that, don't you? It was just wonderful. And
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. The night that I was in my dressing room, and you were on stage doing a very serious, long scene. And I heard this howling and shrieking coming from the stage. I ran up just in time to see you dashing back and forth all by yourself in a beautiful slip and screaming because a bat was chasing you on stage and the audience was loving it.
Oh my God, wasn't that an experience though? I mean,
you remember that?
I do remember that. I remember it very, very well.
It must have been so frightening. What was that like?
Well, what can you do? You have to do something. You can't just let it happen. You have to try to either catch it or make it part of the show. You don't know what to do in a situation like that, but at least the audience had a good time watching it. So
You
that
said
was the
a
most
bat?
they enjoy a bat.
There was a
Yeah, but it only happened to me and Piper. It only happened to me. That kind of stuff always happened to me. But listen. Oh my God. It was quite an experience. It really was. But
Is that where the two of you met?
No, I met Piper early before we ever had a career. Before she signed with Universal and became a movie star. And I hadn't done anything at that time. We met some together, but then I saw her around, but I at some events and things like that, but not really until we did the play did we really become, I think, very good friends. And I've always thought the world.
As I recall, I had finished The Hustler, and I really I had a whole summer ahead of me, and I wanted to work, and I wanted to do comedy. And the only comedy that the theater owners would allow was something really silly. They like to fill those barns. And so I took the second lead in the comedic part, and you played the lead in that.
Mm-hmm.
I kept saying, nice. We're very
the right part. Because I said, you're up for Academy. You're so great. But that was what you chose, and nobody ever played that part better than you. But nor could they even hope to play it as well, ever. But it was a wonderful experience for me, and one that I hold very dear in my heart. And to work opposite you and to be with you was a real honor.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, I know I went to one of your screenings, Karen, and I remember Piper was with you at the time, and she came to the screening. And that's when I first knew that you both were good friends. So I thought, I have to bring Piper on today.
I think what happened was it was an event that was at the hotel in Hollywood, and she was on stage. She was going to be part of a panel. And Marvin Page called me and said, "Would you escort Piper?" I said, "Would I? I would be honored to escort her." So I picked her up and brought her with me in my car. And then I sat in the audience and watched her. Then I hope I took good care of you, Piper. Then I took care of her and made sure she got home okay and all that. So anyway, I think that's when you probably saw us together. But well, David, I think you did a very memorable day for me. And I really appreciate what you did by bringing Piper into this situation. I could see her again. I really deeply appreciate that. And Piper, my children are actors, and they so admire your work. I just want you to know that. And they hope that they're no good acting when they see it, because they say she is extraordinary. And they'll always tell me, "Piper's in this film." I'm going to sit down and watch it again, So they'll watch it with me, but you are extraordinary.
Piper, Laurie, you are a true blessing to so many. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the surprise.
Well, lovely. I love the surprise.
And I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person one day.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see an old friend.
Bye.
It always is.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for that, David. That was a surprise.